Hey, beautiful mama. Welcome to the Radiant Mom Rising podcast, where we believe you were never meant to just survive. You were born to shine. I'm your host, Mary Dibble, life coach, mom of three, and your biggest cheerleader in creating a life and business you love. Each week, we dive into real conversations about mindset, motherhood, healing, and purpose, helping you break free from overwhelm, rediscover your worth, and rise into the confident, radiant woman you were meant to be. Because when moms rise, the world rises with us. So grab your coffee, take a deep breath, and let's get ready to rise together. Welcome back, everyone. Thanks for tuning in. I'm here with Nicole today. Nicole, thank you so much for joining us. How's everything going?
Great. Thank you so much for having me on.
I'm so excited to have this conversation with you. And let's get started, if you will. Share with the audience a little bit about yourself and what you do.
Sure. I'm a mom. I have two kids, 20 and 3 years old. Um, and I am a business owner and fitness and wellness coach. So I have been in the fitness world for pretty much my entire life, but as far as professionally, began coaching about 25 years ago, actually. And so, yeah, and started my first business just over 20 years ago with just a mobile and remote business coaching, in-home private coaching, and as well as gymnastics, cheer, and dance. And I've also since that time stayed just as far as, I guess, staying fit, of course, working out in the gym, but also keeping myself challenged with different sports or stuff like that along the way. I discovered CrossFit sometime in the middle of all of that, and which introduced me to Olympic weightlifting and different styles of training that I hadn't done before. But my background is in gymnastics, and so that's my approach when training and coaching myself and my clients, and then just building on top of that with free weights, whether that's through Olympic weightlifting, powerlifting, bodybuilding, and all of the above.
That's incredible. I love that. So I'd love to talk a little bit about your background of what your journey that led you down this path because I was reading a little bit about you and I know you had just a dream about this kind of since you were younger and you even had experience when you were just a teenager, right? Working in an Olympic training. So tell us a little bit about that experience and what it taught you.
Yeah. So the very first time, I guess I put into words what I wanted to do when I got older or when I grew up was on career day in third grade. We were supposed to dress like what we wanted to be like when we grew up, or what we wanted to be when we grew up, and stand in front of our class and and talk on that. And so I dressed up as what I thought a gymnastics coach and gym owner dressed like, and wore my gymnastics warm ups and said I would be a coach and own my own gym when I grew up. And I was set on that. And then later on, when I got into middle school, I had the opportunity to train at the Olympic Training Center. And during that time, they had made it a thing where everybody was required to go to nutrition courses while we were there. And so during that time and going to the nutrition course, I my eyes were open to how I could kind of tie it all together. That was something that really, I guess, stands out when I think back on, different experiences that really shaped my future, and that was one of them for sure. And where I decided, oh my gosh, that is exactly what I want to do. I would love to work with not just athletes, but athletes, of course, and making sure that they're fueling properly for all of the actual training that they're doing and being able to recover well, reduce injury through just eating and fueling properly. And it just all kind of started clicking of how that could possibly look, and just continued on that path forward.
Yeah, I mean, and that's so important because as you experienced and as most people do around that time, there's a lot of insecurities when you're a teenager. And I feel like this is a cool conversation for moms. Like, I personally struggled with eating disorders when I was younger. So I think it's important that there's a sense of conversation and acknowledgement about understanding a healthier approach to things, because we do see that a lot of the abuse. I mean, I think just the other day on Woody and Wilcox, like they were talking about how there are some people in the Olympics who will literally inject themselves like with this acid or this extra fluid when they're getting sized for fitted for some of their outfits for the snow, the people who, go down really fast, just because this fitting's so tight that it allows actually to give them some space so that they actually get further and go faster. And it's just there's a lot of things out there in which people unfortunately have had a negative experience, or they fall into the wrong habits or the wrong way to be healthy. And so
Mhm.
I think the kind of work you're doing is important, because I want, as far as parents too, it's like we tend to sometimes have this projection of what we wish we had as kids that we sometimes can push on our kids. So I think there's an importance of understanding our kids' health, our health, and how we can model it, and also be mindful and aware of the things that happen. So tell me a little bit about how you help your clients and with this, if you have you ever run into that yourself, and how do you help them with that?
Yeah, I actually, yes, I had several friends when I was growing up that definitely, you know, dealt with the eating disorders. And my coach specifically was very open about it, which was,
Great.
I think, a huge reason why I never felt like I needed to do that. And so I was always very thankful that she was so open and honest about her experience. And, she shared, she was just very open about it and super honest, very authentic about what she struggled with when she was competing, and she was on the national team, when she was younger. And so at a high level, and many of the girls, it's like eating disorders can happen for so many different reasons, but especially in sports, it's usually a competitive edge, and like how far are you willing to, go to, that
Win.
that type of thing. But it can also, while that might be happening, looking at it from another, I guess, another viewpoint of, there's a lot of control around that too. So if they're feeling like they need to have some sort of control over what is happening in their own life, if they feel like everything is kind of out of their control, they're just like,
Yeah.
that's the only thing that they can, or maybe one of the only things that they actually can have a sense of control over.
Yeah.
And it you know so it doesn't always have to necessarily be like they're looking in the mirror thinking, "Oh, I need to lose weight. I can't eat, or I have to throw up my food," or
Yeah.
whatever that might be. It's, "Oh my gosh, to be able to perform at this level or compete at this level, I have to achieve this look or be able to
Yeah.
do
Yeah.
XYZ," or whatever it may be. But thankfully, I personally did not have to go through that, but I seeing my friends deal with that was really, it really affected me, and it broke my heart. And that was a huge piece to everything clicking when at the Olympic Training Center, because we were all rooming together and eating together. And so noticing, just little things here and there, and picking up on, oh my gosh, I don't think my friend has eaten all day, or and we've been training all day long, and I don't think I've seen her eat more than like two crackers or something.
Yeah.
And so it just was, yeah, it made me really sad. And I anyway, so, but thankful that my coach was so open about it, and it wasn't something that she was, she didn't bring shame to it. It's just
Yeah.
something that she dealt with, and she talked about how she got through it. And she was also hilarious, so she
That's always fun.
great storyteller, and always was like very entertaining when she was talking about it. But it made it to, definitely, I think, helped quite a few ladies on our team for sure, just in a real way. And then with my daughter specifically, I, as when I was growing up, I didn't always necessarily have I guess, like, my mom, I just do remember, experiencing some stuff where she would talk about her body not in a very positive way,
Yeah.
and that really stuck with me, and it made me
Yeah.
sad,
Yeah.
for the fact that I thought my mom was beautiful,
Yeah.
and so to hear her talk about herself that way, it really stuck with me, and I just wanted to make sure that, like, especially when I became a mom, that I wanted to make sure that my daughter, heard and didn't, and it wasn't ever like we're focused on aesthetics or just the outward
Yes.
appearance, but more of being strong and being fit and being able to do, like, how many pull-ups can we do? How, like,
Yeah.
how much weight are we, being able to move or lift, or what can our bodies do
To
rather than what they look like,
like, yeah.
and then being proud of that, and and like taking pride in the hard work that we are able to do, and then what we can achieve through that, and so I my daughter was also in gymnastics for several years growing up, and she got, to experience learning how to get strict pull-ups and toes to bar and different things like that, where, you know, learning how to do handstands and back handsprings and all of those skills that we have to be able to fuel our body properly, and then take pride in the strength that we're building across time. And so that was kind of like, I guess, my big thing was I just wanted to make sure that it was always a positive, it was always in a
Yeah.
positive light as far as like how we talked about ourselves, our bodies, our, and then the mental side to that too, just overall
Yeah.
mindset.
Yeah, mindset's a powerful thing. And I'm the same way. Like I completely understand that, resonate with that I grew up in a with my mom being negative about herself as well. And it actually affected me in a way that I ended up taking on that belief about myself.
Mm.
And so it kind of had like a reverse effect. And what I love about your story is that, a lot you hear a lot about people who have been through it, overcome it, and that's why they can help so much. But what I find beautiful about your story is that you're actually someone who witnessed it and actually is evidence and proof that you actually can go through it without being that way. So I love that you can bring that to the table of showing people that, I've witnessed it. So I get that it's a reality that people face and a struggle that people face with, but I can show you because I've done it that you can do it without having to fall into that pattern. And I think that's actually quite beautiful and something I don't even see very often. So I do love that uniqueness about you, Nicole. I just want to point that out. And I love that you're doing that for your kids because I have one daughter. I have a 6-year-old daughter, and then I have a son who's about to be 18. So for me, it's like And then I have a 4-year-old son too. So I'm like you, I have that kind of that big gap between the age difference. And it's crazy too how much I feel like I've changed, of course, over time as a mom and the way I'm showing up now compared to how I did back then when I was really young. But I do feel like what you're doing and how you're helping in the health sense is very incredible for so many. But realistically, so many moms out there are so resistant when it comes to their health, when it comes to exercising, when it comes to being mindful about it all. So for the moms listening who are entrepreneurs, who are busy, who have lots going on, like what would you say to them to help them to shift that perspective in a way that gets them to understand just how important this is for the longevity of their life and then the role modeling even for their kids?
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
So it is definitely not an easy thing, of course, when you've already got so much on your plate to then add something new
Yeah.
when it is not already part of your life and kind of like, something that you already do. If this is like a brand new thing that, is being added into your daily or your weekly life, it takes time. And so I think I think especially for moms that are entrepreneurs and high achievers in all areas of their life, and for some reason, maybe this is that part of their life that is maybe lagging or non-existent, or maybe just sporadic and not super consistent, and maybe it causes some amount of grief of just like, uh, like I was doing so well and now I've like haven't, worked out in 3 weeks or something and feeling like a failure, or and then going through like this whole
Yeah.
mental thing that's just like doesn't need to happen. So the whole thing with my actually I share a lot about this in my book as well. It's all about first just as especially as a busy high achiever, no matter, people especially that have kids, it's it's even more important, I feel like, because we are the living example of how to take care of ourselves and for our kids, so that, as they're getting growing and then eventually of course like growing up, which is so hard.
I
But that's like, that's if that is a regular thing that's part of our life, that's like just what we do, it's who we are, and we show up for ourselves and we live by example in that way. It's just such a powerful thing. And so as far as that goes, I mean that's like right there is amazing. But to even be able to tackle this with everything else that we have going on in life, it can feel daunting and overwhelming, and like we may never be able to achieve the fill in the blank as far as, whatever it is in this area of our life. And so my whole thing is take it as you are okay, maybe we're just establishing the habit. So we're going to carve out maybe 10 minutes 3 to 4 times a week, or maybe it's even 2 times a week, or maybe it's 5 times a week, depending on what you feel like you can handle. And what I normally would say is then you put that on your calendar
yeah.
and across time, 2 to 3 weeks of just keeping that consistent of maybe it's just 10 minutes where you're just going for a walk. But that 10 minutes is consistent and it's at a time that works for you, that you're able to show up for yourself and to get that done. That is your time. And and it's like a meeting with yourself. That's not going anywhere. It's on the calendar. Then over time, you can either maybe start running, or maybe we add 5 minutes, or maybe every 2 minutes you're adding some squats, different ways that you can kind of increase the challenge and increase maybe the duration a little bit, but over time, increasing the load, intensity, the challenge for yourself so that you're continuing to actually get stronger, maybe a little bit fitter. But the biggest thing with this, it's just establishing the habit in small bite-sized chunks. And then we continue to build on that. And then once that's done and you're like, okay, I got this down, I am for myself for those 10 minutes. Maybe the next step is hiring a coach where you're meeting one day a week, one session, one 60-minute session of like a structured strength training. Maybe it's 2 out of the 4 sessions that you were doing with your 10-minute walk. Maybe you're meeting with a trainer for 30 to 45 minutes, or maybe you're able to do a full 60-minute session. But that accountability and then that taking it up a notch after you've already established the habit and it is something that and you're
Mm.
confident that you can show up for yourself with across time,
Yeah.
then you can start to like level up a little bit at a time, but gradually. This is like if we're in it for the long haul and we're in it,
Yeah.
as looking at this from a longevity standpoint, and that we're in this for the rest of our life, like figuring out what are manageable, sustainable ways that we can make this part of our lifestyle, not just for like a season or a
Yeah.
few months, but like the rest of our life. And so when we start looking at it like that, then that feeling of like urgency, of which there is that, you definitely want some urgency here because it is your life.
Yeah.
And you want to, making those changes, but rather than like a panic mode or like you know, feeling either overwhelmed or having anxiety around it, it's kind of takes that all away and just is like, you know what? We're going to be doing this for the rest of our life. I have a while to build, so I can gradually increase. And usually, like when you get to that point where you're like, I think I could probably go 5 more minutes, or I bet I could probably, run at least half of this time. And or maybe, run for 30 seconds, rest for 30 seconds, or run, a minute on, a minute of walking, or whatever that looks like, but something that continues to increase across time. And when that is established, it's pretty powerful because that can carry you a really long way. When you're just like looking at it from a completely different viewpoint than where maybe you were approaching it before. And so rather than looking at it as like, oh man, I really want to wear this dress for this, whatever it may be, looking at it in, you know, 3 weeks, and now I've got to lose 10 pounds or
Oh,
something,
yes.
something like that,
That short
rather than,
term.
and which is it, like if you, there's nothing wrong with wanting to look nice in a dress and like really love how you look. Like that is, of course, that's all part of this, but that's like one of the really cool side effects of focusing on the long term, and taking more of the focus off of like our outward and really putting it, starting from the inside and working out. And when we really do that, it's pretty cool.
Yes, and I will see, and it's someone who does a lot of inner work. I really do believe that's a great starting point too, because the more you do that inner work, is the more you love yourself, and the more you establish that identity work, and that mindset work. You're right. It motivates you naturally to want to take your health serious, to want to do things like that more, to realize that, oh, I committed to this. What else can I commit to? What else can I make accomplish? And it just like you just kind of builds and it builds and it builds upon that. And I want to encourage moms who are listening to take this seriously, because I was just talking about this with another guest about how one of my reasons for wanting to be more serious about my health is because I want to be able to play with my grandkids. Like I want to be able to live a healthier life. Like I don't want to be that person who retires and it's like, then I can't do nothing because I'm hurting all the time. Like I want to live a good life where I can move and be mobile and not have, I see like my mom suffering with arthritis pains already and things like that. It's like I could easily become that if I don't do something now about it. And so it's like I just want people to take that really seriously and be mindful about it. I want to inspire them and know that there's people like Nicole here to help you, because I do agree with the coaching very much in the fact that yes, we can say that we're going to do this and we can put it on our calendars, but how many of us always still end up talking ourselves out of it in the end, because who do we have to answer to except for ourselves, right? And sometimes that's powerful. You can do that. Absolutely. I'm not saying it's not possible, but talk about really following through and amplifying your game. There's nothing like having that support and that coach to be like, we're doing this. Because I know with me, even when I went through physical therapy, I loved it because it was like they pushed me to do these exercises where normally I just wouldn't do it because I'm not that kind of person. And that's something I've struggled with on my journey for a lot. Because it's like, even I'm like you, like what you were talking about earlier, like I would start off strong and then I would get sick. And then it was like a week would go by and I wouldn't do it. And then instead of just being like, okay, that's fun, let's just get back to it, I would just eventually talk myself out of it, like, oh, it wasn't, oh well. And then I'm right back into the old habits. And I've really worked on my identity in that aspect of the understanding the power of consistency. And like you say, we block out time for our calls, for our work, for our kids, for things all the time. So why not do it for an exercise, and or join a class like that where it does hold you accountable because it's at this certain time. That's always a great way to motivate yourself, because Lord knows they'll push you in a class. So yeah, I do love this very much, because I do want moms to understand, like you say, this is not about short-term goals necessarily. It's about the long term and building a habit, right? And it takes, small steps. And I love the advice that you've given with that. Tell us a little bit about like your methods and what that looks like, and what does it look like with working with you?
Yeah. So my book
Oh,
is all about
yeah.
the 6 shifts.
Ah,
So these 6 shifts that are super simple things that we all already know. As far as, so shifts in the book, I share a story about learning how to drive a stick shift when I was 16. And it was a grand adventure, but it really stuck with me. However, learning how to drive a standard or stick shift and the whole story was me in first gear, trying, not even in first gear, trying to get my truck moving in first gear and having all these people flying around me as I'm stalling and trying to go through this light. And my dad, the entire time, is right in the seat next to me, just as calm as could be, as encouraging and supportive as, like just having that there as I am, just full on sweat mode, trying to do something that felt really scary, and just having him say to me, do not worry about anyone, they're fine, we're gonna get through the light, it's okay. And you know so having that bit of support
Yeah.
was and the whole experience, as I was getting on the freeway, I was getting onto a feeder road, turning left. I mean, this whole thing was just a mess. I was like, oh my gosh. So I finally get going in first gear, and I'm making it through the intersection to get onto the feeder road, which is getting onto the freeway, and I have no intention of shifting gears, and I was just gonna ride it in first gear all the way back, totally fine. I'm like, there's no way I'm not doing anymore.
Okay.
And he, as calm as could be, is like, okay, well, we're getting on the freeway, so I'm gonna need you to push the clutch in, and I will help you shift gears. And all the way back, he helped,
Yeah.
shift gears while I'm, pushing the clutch in and driving the truck. And so that whole experience definitely made a huge impact on me and definitely stuck with me for a really long time, and through for the rest of my life up to this point. So much so that I definitely felt like I had to share about it, and just that whole visual of, so many of us, and we've all been there, where we're stuck in first gear and it's the scariest thing ever, and we're like, okay, well, at least I got it going, and I am totally content staying
Right.
in here. I do, yeah,
Uh,
I'm totally good if I don't ever have to do that again. But then the idea of the fact that, like, just having that gentle, quiet support, that just like very calm, steady support there to, help me get through that those scary moments, or just like that encouragement that I needed during that time. And I would have been completely fine if I had never gotten back in that truck ever again, and would have never learned or kept practicing. But my dad encouraged me to keep trying and keep practicing, and eventually I figured it out, and I became more and more confident with driving this truck. And he's like, if you can learn how to drive this, you can drive anything. And of course, like, over time, that became just second nature and stuff that, you don't even think
mhm.
about. And
Mhm.
it's, just like the whole
Mhm.
the whole thing with that. So when we're shifting gears in life, and so these 6 shifts, the word shifts, each letter stands for a daily habit that is something that is very, very important, that I have pretty much, as far as my entire approach across the last 25 years. Of course, it's definitely evolved over that time and how I've like organized it and everything. But the letters stand for, the very first one is sleep. And then H is for hydration. I is for intake, so nutrition. F is for fitness. T
Mhm.
is for thoughts and mindset. And then T is for thoughts, yeah. And then S is for sunshine. And so each of those things and how we keep them a consistent thing in our life, that's like the underlying foundation of our entire life. And so figuring out how do we best support ourselves in each of these areas, and are we fueling properly, are we
Mhm.
getting quality sleep, are we,
Yeah.
how is fitness, strength
Mhm.
training? How is that part of our life? How are we showing up just as far as just our mindset, which I really believe is like the number one thing. However, there are all of the other shifts
Yes.
are in support of either building, they're all in support of one another.
Yes.
And so it's, if you're kind of lagging in one area, it's going to affect everything else.
Mhm.
And it's just this like, okay, so here are these 6 shifts that we want to maintain consistently across the board. Now we take an assessment of how are all of these things looking, and that could be done through journaling, through just bringing more awareness. Sometimes
Yeah.
it's just like,
It's powerful.
is journaling or writing down, taking just notes as far as like logging your sleep and wake times. How was your sleep? How was your quality? How was the quality of sleep that you got? The number of hours that you're staying asleep and across time. Nutritionally, we can log our nutrition and bring more awareness to that. With fitness, all of these things. However, if we tried to do them all at once or try to like overhaul everything all at once, it would be probably a disaster. So we take the top 2 that maybe we feel like we need to keep the biggest focus on. Usually what I'll have everyone do is look at their water and their protein for nutrition, and then pick a consistent schedule as far as fitness across the board. And so that could be looking at, just setting times and days on their calendar. And then, of course, like when I am starting to work with someone, we will choose like set days and times if I am meeting with them in person. If working remotely, that is up to them. I can definitely help them structure, and usually I'll help them create a schedule so they at least know what day they're working out on, and that's when I am sending their programming to them. And so there's that level of accountability, structure, and having a plan in place.
Yes.
But from the beginning, it's really just keeping like, this is as simple as it gets. Like, it's literally, okay, we'll start with water and maybe protein, depending on where we're at. But water, making sure that at least for 2 to 3 weeks in a row, on like 90, we'll say like 95+% of the time, were you getting in at least half of your body weight in pounds and ounces of water daily, and then tracking that, so making sure that that is happening. And what I would normally say is having someone take like whatever the total number of ounces, halving that and having some form of like
Yes.
water bottle that at least holds half of that, where they get that in before lunchtime, and then the other half by dinner, and then get in some extra. It's always good to,
Eh,
so the base minimum of the water intake, most people are not getting in enough water. And although I feel like across the board it has gotten better,
yeah.
just from, like just being in the fitness world and noticing that people are bringing a lot more awareness to that, but I still feel like not
No,
people are not getting in enough water for
definitely
sure
not.
on a regular basis.
Yeah.
And so that is huge. That makes such a huge difference in so many parts of our life. So that would be number 1, just getting that dialed in. And we may just stick with that while adding in our training.
Yes.
Then add after that 2 to 3 weeks, then maybe we look at our protein. And this is all before even looking at macros and diving deep into all the nutrition stuff, because
Yeah.
there's just so nutrition gets so overcomplicated and it doesn't need to be.
Yeah.
And when we are just really focusing on one thing at a time, maybe, of
Mhm.
course, everybody's different, but this is like pretty across the board: protein, water, fitness. Now we look at maybe like, okay, how is our sleep affecting everything that we have going on? What are we doing to make sure that we're, setting ourselves up for success there?
Yeah.
And as far as like being a parent and sleep is can be kind of comical sometimes, but
Yeah.
how are we how are we showing up for ourselves in that way to be as successful as possible with that part of our life? Because
Mhm.
that's the hardest part for me specifically is the sleep piece to those 6 shifts. But it makes such a huge difference,
Mhm.
and when we definitely place a big priority on it, make it an
Yeah. Mhm.
actual, like, this is
Eh,
important, and put some boundaries around it,
yes.
it's really
It's
amazing.
it is. It does. And when you have young ones, it's like it is challenging to go through a season. And there's only so much we can and cannot do. But I like what you said about like trying to find where you can set some boundaries, find some time. I didn't honor that in my past, and it definitely affected me where I saw opportunities where I could have napped more, I could have taken a rest more, and I didn't. So, definitely like having grace, of course, but understanding, hey, that too will end. Like they don't stay young forever. So, yes, right now it might be a little rough, but man, when they get to that point where they're sleeping in and you're like, whew, it will come to that. I feel like my kids, especially my young ones, like I feel like on the weekends they get up no problem at the time that school would be, but then on the weekdays it's like they're just exhausted and tired, and I'm like, where is this on the weekends? Like, why
Yeah,
don't you sleep in? But I love that, and I want to go back to your analogy story with the stick shift because it just took me back to my sister. My sister did the same thing when she was younger. She actually purchased a car and drove it off the lot, not knowing how to drive it, and was determined that she was going to figure it out. And there were so many times this poor girl would get stalled at like a railroad tracks or a stoplight, and I remember
oh,
her
yeah,
crying and being upset. And I felt like I was, even though I had no idea how to do it either, I would be the one because same thing, cars going around her, she's freaking out, and I'm like, it's okay, they'll be fine, let them go, you'll get it when you get it. And I never thought of it like that, of how impactful, but just even just getting to watch her go from that point of being like crying and upset to like, girl, she had it, no problem. Like that is what life is all about. Like
yeah,
even learning to drive, anything,
that's
anytime you start anything, you do not know what you're doing. Everything is foreign. But if you just do it one day at a time and just keep going, it gets easier and easier. And like you say, a lot of times, most of it becomes autopilot. It becomes a part of who you are. And that's why
mhm,
I think it's so cool that the way we position that and how you help people, because that is the smart thing to do. It's like, I think what we do as moms, as women, is we like to look at the big picture all together. We want to do all the things. We overload ourselves automatically just thinking about everything, we like the end result of what we want. And it's like we got to it's okay, you got to work backwards, and you got to honor where you are. Like you are where you are. There's no judgment, no shame. Just be real. If you haven't been doing it, okay. So what can you do today to start, like you say, whether it be create that plan, put that, I have a reminder on my phone, on my calendar, to drink water, because I know that about me too, that I get so busy and consumed with things
yeah,
that I'll just forget to drink. And I know how important water is. And thankfully, I'm not someone who drinks like soda or juices or anything else. So water is all I drink pretty much. Well, besides a little alcohol here and there. I know I got to work on that too, but but still, like I understand how important water is. And even my kids, like I don't give them sodas and things like that, just milk and water and sometimes juice. But I always am pushing that. Drink water, drink your water, drink your water. I do it for them more than sometimes I do it for myself. But I
mhm,
use them sometimes when I'm like pushing them to drink water. I'm like, okay, I'll take this moment to drink water
yeah,
myself, and I'll role model that. But like I said, again, there's no shame in acknowledging where you are. What matters is what you do about it. Like, are you
mhm,
going to just keep allowing yourself to live by these excuses, or allowing it to just keep going by without making any changes? Or are you ready to step up and be like, nope, I'm going to do something about it? And then allow yourself to invest and do whatever it takes to make sure that you follow through, because that's the hardest part. It's one thing to decide, which is very powerful, but it's a whole nother thing to implement it. And that's where people like you and I come in to help them like gracefully. And because we know what's possible, and we know, we believe in our clients, we know what they can do and what they can accomplish, but sometimes they don't believe it yet. And that's our
yeah,
goal, is we want to help you to believe and see what is possible for yourself. So I love this. This has been amazing talk. Tell those listeners, where can they find you if they want to learn more about working with you in your book?
yeah. My website is at nicolezapoli.com. And that has pretty much everything that you would absolutely need or not know you needed. And then my Instagram also is at Nicole Zapoli, and that also has all sorts of stuff on there. And then my book is on both of those. It's also on Amazon. It's called Live Fit from the Inside Out.
Oof, I love that, love that, love that. Be sure to check that out, you guys. Go grab a copy of that. That sounds amazing and a great first step in really educating yourself, but also taking some action towards creating a healthier lifestyle for ourselves. Because, I mean, what we not only want it for ourselves, we want it for our children, but it does start with us and how we role model. So I also love opening the floor. Is there any final piece of advice that you'd like to leave for listeners today?
Oh, gosh, I've shared this a few times. This is one of the biggest things that stands out when I think back, especially in times when I've gone through anxiety and or just feeling overwhelmed with life. And I had this woman that was she was, you know, like 20 years older, had a little bit more life experience, and I was sharing some stuff with her one time. She said, "You know what? The one thing that always helped her was do the next thing. And once you've done that next thing, then do the next thing. And you don't have to know what that next thing is going to be until you get there. And it could literally be like, get up and make some coffee, or, let's go out for a walk, or whatever, fill in the blank. But the whole idea is that, sometimes we need to just like literally take it one rep at a time, and it's doing that next thing, whatever that is for you right now. It's, and that was such a powerful thing, and it still is, something that I apply in my own life. And I am so thankful for that little bit of wisdom. It's like the most simple thing, but it is so powerful.
Oh, I love that because sometimes those most simplest of things are the most powerful, and
Mhm.
I think we just tend to overcomplicate things so much in this
Oh, yeah.
world. So yes, I love that. What a beautiful piece of advice, and just thank you so much for all that you do, Nicole, and how you help others. I think your journey is incredible and inspiring. I love all that you're teaching like others and your kids. It's wonderful. That's amazing. So I want to thank you so much for taking the time to be here with us and share your story.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me.
Oh, it's been a pleasure. Thanks for tuning in. If you enjoyed today's episode, be sure to subscribe below, follow along, and always leave a comment. Tell me what was your favorite takeaway. What are some things that are coming up for you through these conversations? I really love to hear from my listeners and know that I'm always here for you. If anyone listening is ready to take action and really follow through and implement the goals that you set out for, as well as work on that mindset and really step into your full potential and the CEO of your life, then I invite you, schedule your free 1 hour limitless mom strategy call with me while they're available. And let's explore where you are, where you want to be, and how we can bridge that gap together. I can't thank you all enough for tuning in each week. Always remember, until next time, keep rising, keep shining, and keep believing in everything that is available for you, Mama. You are worthy, you deserve it, and I'm so grateful to be walking this journey alongside you. Much love.